All right, we are back. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another YouTube video, and we're back with another podcast. Apologies for missing last episode or last week, and sorry for putting this one out late. I've been traveling. Last week I was in New Orleans. This weekend I went to South Florida to watch the Dolphins game, and then once I got back Monday night, I went to a Jonas Brothers concert with my girlfriend, so didn't get home till like 1 a.m. And yeah. Today I've been working, and then on my lunch break just been going through some of the games that's been going on, jotting down notes, and now here we are. As you guys can see, got a cat tree behind me, and if you guys notice, it's a little bit lighter in my room. I'm letting some of the natural light in. I normally record these at night at like midnight, so I only have my my light up here, but we're here. We got all the light, we got my notes, we're back, looking clean. I feel like skin is looking good. Got a new Apple Watch. We're here. We're ready. We had a good week of football. Week 6 in the NFL. Now we're approaching week 7. Man, if you're new here, hopefully you guys enjoy. And subscribe if you're new. And if you do enjoy the content, drop a thumbs up. And as always, I'm going to have the timestamps in the description so you can go and see all the different topics I'm going to be talking about here today. It's going to be talking about 7 different games, 14 total teams. So yeah, it's been a little bit of a longer intro than I normally do, but we're here, and let's start off. Of course, you guys know I'm a Dolphins fan right here. I'm a Dolphins fan. So we always talk about the Miami Dolphins first. So the Dolphins and Panthers game, as you guys know, as I mentioned earlier, I went to the Dolphins game. This was my first NFL game ever, my first Dolphins game ever, and it was awesome. I had a great time. Going to be showing some footage for you guys. On one of these sides here, some of the seats I got, watching some of the touchdowns and stuff. It was a great experience. But that aside, let's get into the game. I thought it was a good team win. After going down 0-14 in the first quarter, I wasn't too worried. I really thought our offense was going to get going, and they did. After the first quarter, they got going, and they never stopped. So yeah, everyone played good. Raheem Mostert, 3 tutties, 120 rushing yards, like 30 or 40 receiving yards. Had himself a day. I'm glad he's back at RB1. You know, Devon Achane is injured, so that's why he's RB1. But he looked great. Tua throwing the ball really well. Across the middle, down the seams, outside. I mean, he was just throwing the ball really well. There were a couple throws where 1 or 2 he threw into like triple coverage. And then there were 2 he threw to Tyreek at the beginning of the third quarter and just threw it right in the dirt with a clean pocket. So Tua needs to clean those up. I've always been on him. He needs to clean up those throws. But yeah, Dolphins got a good team win. Tyreek looked good. Jalen Waddle finally getting involved in the offense. Had a touchdown. Had a couple other targets. And the defense played good after starting off or giving up 14 straight points. They let up 0 the rest of the game. And yes, the Panthers scored 21, but the other 7 was a pick six from Mike White in the fourth quarter. So defense stepped up and played good. The Dolphins are 5-1, but I'm ready for them to get tested again by a playoff team in the Eagles. Eagles dropped their first game, so both teams are 5-1 going into Sunday night football, at 8:20. So I'm excited to finally see them get tested again. Because, you know, we won week 1 against the Chargers, 36-34. That was a close game. Offense played great. Defense played horrible. Then in week 2, we won by only 7 against the Patriots. That was a close game, a really good game. And then after the Dolphins are 3-0, we go into Buffalo and we lose by 28. So I'm ready for the Dolphins to get tested again and see, you know, if they can get a win, improve to 6-1. That would be crazy. So yeah, I'm ready for the Dolphins to continue to play and improve. But now let's move on to the Carolina Panthers. Man, I thought Bryce Young looked great. You know, they did only put up 14 points, but he looked great. He was making some good throws. He was standing in that pocket, taking some hits. His offensive line, not the greatest. And he was under pressure. He was throwing off his back foot, making some good throws, making some good reads, waiting for plays to develop, and, you know, giving his receivers chances to catch the football. So I thought he played great. Adam Thielen, also my white brother, looking good out there, showing, you know, the minority white receivers, we still got it. He looked good. Don't take that the wrong way, please. Anyways, Panthers went away from the run in the first quarter. In the first quarter, when they had 14 points, there was a stretch on that second drive where they ran the ball like 6 or 7 times in a row. And in the first quarter, they had 70 yards rushing. The rest of the game, 38 yards rushing. So they went away from the run, which is what was really getting them that offense going, because they were staying balanced. And that play calling really, really killed them. So, yeah, but the Panthers, they had a missed field goal at the end of the first half, and that would have cut the lead to 4. And then they had a turnover on downs in Miami territory in the third quarter, and that would have cut the lead to 8, and it would have made it a 1-possession game. So on paper, yes, you see, wow, the Dolphins won 42-21. They won by 21 points. This game wasn't even close, but there were a couple decisions where A, going away from the run game, and then 2, missing that field goal at the end of the first half, and then not kicking that field goal in the third quarter, which, would have changed the game, and it would have made it an 8-point game. So, but yeah, the Panthers defense couldn't stop the Dolphins offense once they got going, and they looked great, the Miami offense. In my opinion, I think this is the best winless team I think we've seen in recent memory. This team has had a lot of close games, and I mean winless. I'm not talking like 1-12 team. I'm talking like winless. This team is really good for being winless, in my opinion. But Adam Thielen now playing the slot, getting acclimated in there. He never really did that in Minnesota, but he's looking great. He's the number 1 receiver in receptions and in yards for a slot receiver. So you just want to see, them really stick to the run, because if I am correct, I can't think of the Panthers head coach, but their offensive coordinator, Frank Wright. Yeah, Frank Wright is no longer going to be in charge of calling the plays offensively. So we might see a shift next week against the Texans, and they play CJ Stroud. And yeah, you would like to see them get a good win. CJ Stroud and Bryce Young, both rookies, matching up. So yeah, wonder when they will get their first win. So they also play I believe they play the Bears too. So moving on to the Ravens and Titans game. This game was played in London and was a 9:30 Eastern game. Oh man, excuse me. Woo! Okay, so starting off with the Ravens, I thought they got a really tough win. Titans aren't that great, but it was a hard-fought win. They improved to 4-2, and they're now in first place of that AFC North that is looking kind of tough when we didn't think it was going to be tough last season. So yeah, tough division with the Browns, Bengals, and Steelers, all with 3 wins. So the Ravens only have 1 game ahead of all those teams, and the Browns won, and the Bengals won, and did the Steelers win on Thursday night? I think I can't remember. No, they have a bye week this week, I believe. Someone's going to roast me in the comments. I think they're on a bye week because Thursday was Chiefs-Lions. Anyways, I got a couple things here about Lamar. I thought he looked great. Only had 223 passing yards, but he had 62 rushing yards. And he is the leading rusher, with J.K. Dobbins tearing his Achilles, and then a couple injuries in the running back room. Yeah. The Ravens are still figuring out who their RB1 is going to be. And Lamar threw the ball to the receiver. I don't know who it was. And the receiver thought the ball was... Excuse me. And the receiver thought the ball was getting thrown out of bounds. And he jumped and didn't put his hands up. And as he's turning, he sees the corners right behind him. And he catches the ball. And he's like, oh, damn. And Lamar was like, what the hell? Why don't you go for the ball? So... just kind of a miscommunication there. It was a good buy. It was a good ball by Lamar. Could have been a little bit lower, but receiver just thought he was throwing the ball away. So, yeah, Lamar made some great throws. I was watching the game. He's making some really good throws off his back foot, on the run, across his body, making some good throws, good decisions. And he was trying to get OBJ involved as well. He had 4 targets. I think he had 2 catches for maybe 25 yards. I don't know if he either left the game or was benched or something, because I couldn't find anything. But when I was watching the game in the second half, I did not see him. Maybe I was just looking at the wrong receiver, but when I went back and watched the game, I did not see him out there. So, yeah, Lamar did a good job of navigating the pocket and stepping up in the pocket when he decided to throw the football, because the Titans' pass rush was making themselves known, making Lamar having to move in the pocket. And, he's really developing as a pocket passer, and he's easily a top 10 passer in this league. He's so underrated as a passer. So yeah, the offense only had 1 touchdown, though, the Ravens offense that is, and they stalled a little bit in the red zone, but they were still able to get points. They got into Titans territory, and they had to settle for 6 field goals, so 18 points just off of field goals, and they ended up winning the game. So at least they're getting points. They do have Justin Tucker, so that's always big when you have a kicker as reliable as him. So the Ravens defense played great, applying pressure to Tannehill. The Ravens defense, oddly enough, is ranked 6th in the NFL, which I did not know. But this team is looking good at 4-2, and they play the Lions next. So I'm excited for that game. You have the 5-1 Lions playing the Baltimore Ravens, who are 4-2. That's going to be a good game, even though it's an AFC versus NFC. It just feels like it's going to be such a good game, because the last time this team played, the Lions lost, and it was just a bunch of horrible decisions last season or the season before. And then Justin Tucker kicks like a 66-yard field goal, bounces off the post and goes in as time was expiring. So looking for that rematch. Lions are looking good. And now to talk about the Titans, man, it's just not too much to talk about. I talk about this in my previous episodes. They're so inconsistent. They win a game, then they lose a game. Then they get blown out, then they blow them out. Then they lose and they win. And it's just so inconsistent. This team was looking good last week when they won. They were getting D-Hop involved. Derrick Henry was running the football. But Tannehill only completed 50% of his passes and threw an interception before getting hurt and taken out in the third quarter. Then you have Malik Willis coming in and running for his life. Oh my goodness. Oh, excuse me, guys. Wow. But the Titans offense was not able to get much going. They only had 230 yards of total offense, and Derrick Henry had 160-yard run. So if you take that away, they only had 170 yards of total offense. They just couldn't really get the ball done, the offense moving in the air. D-Hop wasn't getting involved as much, and just couldn't. Tannehill or Malik Willis didn't have time to throw the football because the Ravens were applying so much pressure. So that offensive line was definitely going through it. And now let's move on to the Bengals and the Seattle game. So this is a game I had to go back and watch, and the Bengals. I'm gonna sit here, put my arm around, lean back, get a little comfortable. So yeah, if you're watching right now, I want you to comment potatoes. If you're still watching and you're paying attention, let me know. It lets me know you guys are paying attention. Just comment potatoes. So Bengals now on a 2-game win streak, and they got another really big win to stay alive in the AFC North. Like I just mentioned, the Bengals, the Browns, the Steelers all have 3 wins, and the Ravens at 4 wins. So that division is tough. But they're sitting at 3-3, and they got another much needed win to avoid a 2-4 hole, which sounds crazy. So the Bengals didn't look great, but the offense was able to score some points and move the ball a lot better than they were at the beginning of the season. They still need to establish the run as they rank 29th in rush offense in the NFL. So the offense needs to do a lot better. And the defense, hold on, let me turn on my fan. It's hot in here, man. Ooh, okay. So the offense needs to do better, and the defense picked off Geno Smith twice, so that was definitely the game changer there. Once of those interceptions being in the red zone, so taking away points for sure, and then the other one at midfield. excuse me, wow, at midfield as the Seahawks were driving downfield. So those are big takeaways by the Bengals defense there. But now the Bengals are going on a bye week. It gives a chance for Joe Burrow to get healthy, really rest that calf, and just kind of sit back and relax for a week at least, for 6 days at least. Then going into practice and doing the walkthroughs and, putting on contact and all that stuff. So now going into that bye week, they have 2 weeks to prepare for the San Francisco 49ers, who are coming off a tough loss, losing CMC, Deboo, and in tough weather conditions in the Browns, who have the #1 defense in the NFL. So the Bengals need to win this game. I feel like that would be a statement win for this Bengals team, especially offensively, if they are able to outpace the Niners offense and win this game. That would definitely give them a lot of momentum on a 3-game win streak. Yeah. So moving on to the Seahawks, the opponent. So Seahawks on the other end of the stick for the bye week. They're coming out of the bye week and they lose a close game against this Bengals team. Both teams only scored 3 points in the second half. So you want to put up more points as an offense, but Geno's 2 interceptions in the second half really killed them. Like I said, that one in the red zone wasn't the greatest throw, and then the other one at midfield, I don't really remember too much. But the Seahawks are 3-2, and now they go play the Cardinals at home. So a divisional game. And if they win, they improve to 4-2 in an NFC that is getting a lot more difficult. That is going to have a lot more wild card implications. And they could be second in their division, of course, behind the 49ers. But Seahawks need to find this win. If you're a Seahawks fan, you really want them to win this game to stay alive in that wild card game. Now the game I was kind of talking about a little bit, the 49ers and Browns game. This game was tough to watch if you're a Niners fan, because of course the Browns, without Nick Chubb, without Nick Chubb, and then your backup quarterback PJ Walker, and then you lose Christian McCaffrey and Deboo. You lose Deboo on the first play, Christian McCaffrey kind of like in half. So it's tough, but Niners lose their first game. They're 5-1, still a top team in the NFL, probably a top 2 team with everyone healthy, in my opinion. But it was a good game for both teams, even though it was low scoring. Brock Purdy, I thought he had a decent game, playing the #1 defense in the NFL in the Cleveland Browns. Like I mentioned before, Jim Short's doing a great job with that defense. So yeah, Brandon Ayuk had to step up, and he did. I don't know how many catches he had. Let me check real quickly, because the reason I say I want to see how many catches he had is because Brandon Ayuk had 4 drops that would have gone for at least another 40 yards on top of his yards that he already had. So Brandon Ayuk needed to step up, and I would have liked to see George Kittle involved in the offense a little bit more, because he only had 1 catch that whole game. So let's see here, Brandon Ayuk. Yeah, he had 4 receptions for 76 yards, and he had 10 total targets. So 4 of those being drops. You need Brandon Ayuk to really step up. Last season, he did have a better year than his rookie season, but this season, now with George Kittle there, CMC really involved in the offense, Deboo, you need Brandon Ayuk to really be that wide receiver too, and he had a couple drops that you just don't want to see. So coming back to the Niners, like I mentioned, George Kittle, you want to see him involved a little bit more. He had 1 catch for I think 2 yards, and it's like CMC is out. Okay, Debo's out. Now you only have Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, and Brock Purdy. Let's feed this guy. Let's get this guy involved. Let's do play action pass. Let's do bootlegs. Let's send him across the middle. Let's give him an option route so he can read that defense. Let's put him on a corner route. Let's run smash backside. Let's run him across the middle on a drag route across on a bootleg. Let's get him involved somehow. Just get him the football. You give your playmakers the ball to make plays. That's what you pay them the big bucks for. So you really would have liked to see that. But that being said, the Niners kicker Jake Moody did miss 2 field goals, which was kind of the story of this game. And they missed 2 field goals, which is 6 points, and the Niners lost by 2 points. So, you do the math, and if he makes one of those, they win that game. But the Browns pass rush really forced some tough throws on Brock Purdy. I was going back and watching, I'm like, man, even with some max protection, dropping back in I formation with 7-8 man protection, they were still able to get some pressure on Brock Purdy. So I think it's a factor of Myles Garrett, and B, Jim Schwartz is dialing up some good stunts up front to get the offensive line confused and sitting a delayed blitz, all that stuff. Browns get a really big win against the San Francisco 49ers without Deshaun Watson, without Nick Chubb, So both teams are kind of without 2 key players. And, Browns come up big and get a nice win to stay alive in a tough NFC or AFC North that I've been talking about. PJ Walker, I'm going to be honest, he didn't play the greatest, but he didn't play like absolute trash. Granted, he did play against a 49ers defense who was number 2 in the league. He had a lot of inaccurate throws, a lot of throws that were forced that you could tell he was kind of rushing. Excuse me. He threw 2 interceptions, and he threw another one that should have been picked but was dropped. But all in all, he got the win, and he put together a 2-minute drive in the 4th quarter to put the Browns in field goal position and kick the game-winning field goal essentially. So props to him on that. Myles Garrett, have a little stat here that PFF posted. Myles Garrett won 31% of his pass rushing snaps versus Trent Williams. Trent Williams, if you don't know, the left tackle for the San Francisco 49ers, All-Pro. That is the highest percentage given up by Williams his entire career. So it just goes to show how serious this Browns defense is. But the Browns are 3-2, and their next 3 games are the Colts, Seattle Seahawks, and the Arizona Cardinals. So let's say at the minimum they go 2-1 in that stretch. The Browns are then 5-3 in the AFC. And reports are saying that Deshaun Watson is going to be coming back next week against the Colts. But if he's not, like I said, at the very least, let's say they go 2-1. Let's say they even go 3-0. Then the Browns need to really be taken seriously with that defense. If Deshaun Watson continues to play well, the Browns could be 6-2. I think they would probably be at first place in that AFC North, probably like a 3 or 4 seed in the AFC. So excited to see the Browns. I mentioned it in one of my podcasts earlier this season that they're going to take a step forward this season. They're going to win about 9-10 games, and they're doing that. They're doing it first with their defense. Started off a little bit rocky, but offensively started off rocky. But now here they are. If they get Deshaun Watson back, they could really be in contention. Next game that I'm going to cover here is the Texans versus the Saints game. I'll start off with the Saints, man. The Saints just beat themselves offensively. If you watch this game, you're like, man, the Saints had 130 more yards of offense than the Texans. I'll say that again. The Saints had 130 more yards than the Texans, and they lost by 6 points. So, talk about a couple things here. The Saints, they had 2 missed field goals. They had an interception in the red zone, and they had a turnover on downs in the red zone. So let's say you give them one of those missed field goals, and then let's say you just give them another field goal in the interception or the turnover on downs. That's 6 points. So if you want to add all those total, that's 12 points, and they lost by 6. So you're just shooting yourself in the foot, and it's just plays you wish you had back because that Saints offense was moving offensively. Derek Carr, I think, threw for around 335, 340 yards, getting Chris Olave involved. Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara had himself a pretty good day rushing. And it just sucks if you're a Saints fan to see, now I believe they're 3-3 after they were 3-1. So it's, wait, are they 3-3? I don't know. I think they are. So, yeah, the Saints defense, being the number 7 defense in the NFL, held the Texans to only 3 points in the second half and only allowed the Texans to cross midfield once. So the Saints really given their offense chances to go win the games, and they did, but they just shot themselves in the foot on 2 missed field goals, a turnover and downs, and an interception really killed them. So just missed opportunities, man. Now to talk about the Texans, I did not think they were going to pull out this win, to be honest. When I was looking at their schedule last week, I was like, I'm just going to mark this as an L for them because, let's be honest, the Saints defense is really good. And the Texans offense, yes, they're a top 15 offense, but I think they're a top 12 offense actually. But you have CJ Stroud playing a top 7 defense. I think he's going to struggle, and Saints just shot themselves in the foot, and the Texans got themselves a good win. Going into the bye week at 3-3, a couple of things I jotted down is it was a great team win, I thought. The defense stepped up in holding the Saints to only 1 touchdown, forcing them to kick those field goals. So on the other side, you can say the Texans defense stepped up, forcing them to kick field goals and go for it on downs, and also getting a turnover in the red zone. So Texans defense really stepped up. CJ Stroud threw his first interception and then was automatically a fumble. So it's like it really didn't even count. If you guys saw, so CJ Stroud dropped back, threw an interception. The linebacker was running it back. He fumbled. Texans recovered. So it was 1st and 10 Texans either way. But the interception, I'm not too mad about because it wasn't like I'm going to force this here sort of thing. It was a good play by the linebacker. He was drifting, and as soon as he threw the ball, he broke off his zone and really attacked that ball and was able to get it. So not too mad at the interception. CJ Stroud only completed 13 passes. So on paper, it's like, damn, he only completed 13 passes, completed less than 50% of his passes, but he still played a decent game. In the first half, he played phenomenal. He was finding his receivers. He was making great reads. He was making great throws. And then in the second half, the Saints really dialed up their pressure on CJ Stroud and forced him to throw the ball away a lot and make tough throws. And in the second half, I believe that's when he got a lot of his incompletions. I think he threw maybe 10 or 11 incompletions in the second half. So he went from completing like 8 or 9 to a lot of incompletions because Saints were just dialing up a lot of pressure up front. So, but yeah, Texans are now heading into the bye week at 3-3, and they play the Panthers week 8. So, or is that week 7? Week 8. Well, I had it right. They play week 8, so they could very well be 4-3 in the AFC, pushing for a maybe in the hunt, maybe a wild card spot. I don't know, but Nico Collins, Dalton Schultz, Damian Williams, CJ Stroud, that offense is looking really good. So now let's talk about the Eagles versus Jets game, man. This was an interesting one. I was watching this. I watched only the second half on the way back in the car ride from Miami. And the Eagles, I'll start off with them. They looked good in the first half, man. They scored 14 points, and that was the end of it. But they only scored 14 points in the second half. In the first half, excuse me. The Eagles' run game was damn near non-existent. Hurts led the team with 47 rushing yards, and a majority of those rushing yards came from Jalen Hurts scrambling in a drop back, and it was a coverage sack downfield, and he didn't have anywhere to go with the football on top of the pressure he was getting, and he was just taking off and running. He did a great job of that, though. Nothing to take away from him there, but in terms of the run game, aside from scrambles, the Eagles weren't able to get anything done, and that Eagles offensive line got pushed around for the first time this season. So in the second half, this is the Eagles' drives. They went punt, interception, missed field goal, interception, turnover on downs. So Hurts with 3 interceptions, and they were not good throws that he wished he could have back. But aside from those 3 interceptions, Hurts played well, but you got to take into account those 3 interceptions. But aside from those, he was making good throws. He was forcing the ball downfield. He was extending plays with his legs, throwing the ball downfield when he needed to on the run, and then taking off and running. So both teams' defense played really well, I thought, honestly. But now the Eagles, have signed Julio Jones, so we'll see about that and how he turns into a wide receiver 3. Julio Jones has still got it. I don't care how old he is. He's one of the greatest receivers of all time, in my opinion. One of the greatest most underrated route runners ever. So, but now to move on to the Jets, they get a really, really, really big win. Excuse me, wow. To stay afloat until Aaron Rodgers comes back around week 15, week 16, maybe week 17. Zach Wilson played as a game manager. If I could compare him to anyone, I would compare Zach Wilson to a Joe Flacco, right? Joe Flacco, I thought, was the ultimate game manager. Like, and I mean that, like, Joe Flacco was never elite. And most touchdowns he threw in a season was 26. So, he's your game manager, and that's what Zach Wilson is doing now. You know, he's kind of taking what the defense is giving him. He's getting his ball to his number 1 wide receiver. In this case, is Garrett Wilson. He targeted him 12 times. He had 8 catches for 90 yards. So he's finally getting him the football. Zach Wilson didn't have any turnovers. And that's big because he was pressured a lot. I think he was sacked 5 times and pressured a ton, forced to scramble and run. So Zach Wilson definitely getting that confidence back. And now the Jets all of a sudden are 3-3. They're not out of contention yet, because if you remember the Tampa Bay Bucks and their Super Bowl run in 2020, they were sitting at, I believe, 6-6 or 7-7, and then they made the run at the end of the season, and then eventually in the postseason won 4 straight and won the Super Bowl. So anything is possible. But aside from Garrett Wilson getting involved, the Jets offense was kind of bland. They did have that last touchdown that was off of a Jalen Hurts interception that set the Jets up at the 8-yard line, and they just ran it right in for a touchdown. But yeah, the defense definitely keeping them in games. This is a team game after all, so they played great on both sides of the football. And the Jets are going into a bye week to get everyone healthy, including Sauce Gardner and their other corner that they were missing in this game. So the Jets are 3-3 with all things considered. If you're a Jets fan, I'd be pretty excited. You know, if you know Mike Greenberg, he's excited and he wants to get Aaron Rodgers back. So now the last game we're going to talk about here is the Jets and the Bills game. Now, I can speak for everyone when I can say we were not expecting this type of game at all. I was expecting the Bills to win by 14 points, 13, 14 points, like a comfortable win, like, okay, that was a good win, sort of thing, but it was questionable, you know? It was interesting to say the least. The Bills' first half offense was stalled like we haven't seen before this season. You know, Josh Allen played poor week 1, but they still moved the ball on the Jets in the first half. The Bills had only 137 yards in their first 6 drives in the first half. So that's only 23 yards per drive. So that's about 2 first downs and then they punt. So was not looking good. But in the second half, that's when they needed to step up, and that Bills offense definitely stepped up. They had 164 yards on only 2 drives. They had a 17-play, 89-yard, 10-minute touchdown drive. Then their next possession, a 12-play, 75-yard, 7-minute touchdown drive. So 2 long drives that ate up a bunch of clock and gave the Bills the lead. Believe it or not, those were the Bills only had the ball 3 times in the second half. They had the 17-play drive, they had the 12-play drive, and then they got the ball again after the Giants had a turnover on downs. And then they just kicked the field goal and they missed it. But those were the only times they had the football, and they needed points, and they got points. So the Bills did have 2 missed field goals, one being in the first half, one being in the second half. But the defense played well. They're missing a ton of playmakers on the defensive side of the football. And Mac Milano, now out for the season. A bunch of other players I just can't remember, but they signed Josh Norman, so everything's going to be fine. But it was a test for them, I think. The Giants adjusting to having a 6-7-man protection sometimes to give Tyrod Taylor time to throw the football. And now moving on to the Giants, Tyrod played well. I thought a backup quarterback on a makeshift offensive line against a top defense in the Bills, even though they are missing some key playmakers, The Giants should have won this game. But to go back and talk about the offensive line and kind of what the Giants were doing offensively, the first drive or two, Tyrod Taylor had no time to throw the football. Then one of their tackles gets hurt. They had to move their guard to left tackle, and give kudos to the Giants for adjusting. Tyrod Taylor was getting pressured. Offense wasn't moving the ball. They couldn't run the ball, and then I don't know who made the decision, but the Giants were like, you know what? We're gonna play a tighter personnel. We're gonna add another tight end. We're gonna have the running back chip for the DN and for the tackle to help him out. We're gonna run more play action. We're gonna run more bootleg to get Tyrod out of the pocket. We're gonna run more 7-step drop, I formation dropbacks to help with protection to protect our quarterback. And all of those adjustments worked. The Giants were able to drive down the field. Now, they only really got field goals out of it, but they were still driving down the field and getting a lot of offense going. Oh, my goodness. I can't believe we missed this. Or I missed this. We have to talk about those 2 bad plays that cost the Giants this game that they should have won. At the end of the first half, with 12 seconds left, the Giants run the ball. Now, that was just miscommunication. The offensive coordinator shouldn't have given Tyrod Taylor a play to where he could have checked for a run. So it was bad on the play calling, bad on Tyrod Taylor, because you have 0 timeouts, 12 seconds. You do not run the ball. You have, at the very minimum, 2 plays to throw the ball in the end zone. And at the very minimum, you settle for 3 points. So, and then at the end of the game, you could call it pass interference or holding. After watching it back and letting it sit for a while, I think it was pass interference, but I don't mind the no call. So, because you have the corner grabbing, and then you had Darren Waller grabbing or putting his hand on the guy's face mask. So, it's a good no call in my opinion. But you have that there, and they end up not getting the touchdown or a field goal. So, but if you're a Giants fan now, you start to scratch your head and wonder about Daniel Jones, because you have Tyrod Taylor, who hasn't played in a while, who's a backup quarterback, who's in his 30s, makeshift offensive line, and he comes in and he plays much better than Daniel Jones. And he loses a close game against, right now, a top 6, top 7 team in the NFL. So now you're stuck with a big contract because he wanted $40 million a year. You want to be paid like Patrick Mahomes. So now it's like he's injured. Do we want to start Tyrod even when Daniel Jones is coming back? Do we want to sign Tyrod to a 2-year deal? Probably not. But after the season, I would definitely start to wonder, do we tank for another quarterback? What are we going to do with his contract? And so on. But that is going to do it for today's episode. Wow, that was about 38 minutes. So, wow, a lot of football. But yeah, hopefully you all enjoyed. If you have anything that you want me to talk about, or any team you want me to talk about, drop it in the comments below. If you stay to the very end, comment potatoes in the description so I know you watched the very end. And yeah, thank you all so much for watching. Hopefully you all enjoyed. And as always, I will see you all next video. Peace.